Hey, President Proctor, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the San Mateo Foster City School District Board of Trustees meeting. Today is January 27th, 2022, and I'm going to call the meeting to order at 5:30 p.m. We are going to recess now to closed session where we will discuss item 2.1, Government Code 54957, Public Employee Discipline Dismissal Release District Reorganization, and item 2.2, Government Code Section 54957.6, Conference with Labor Negotiator, District Representative Diego R. Ochoa, Superintendent. And we'll be back at 6:30 when we reconvene to the regular meeting. Thank you.
Okay, President Proctor, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. We are reconvening to our regular meeting at 6:37 p.m. and we have nothing to report out of closed session. So we're going to go right into item 3.2, flag salute. Please stand up and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right. We will now go to item 3.3. We'll do a roll call. So Trustee Warren?
Here.
Trustee Watkins?
Here.
Trustee Corzo?
Here.
Trustee Chen?
Here.
And I am here as well. We will now go to item 3.4, approval of agenda, January 27th, 2022.
Motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Watkins for the motion and Trustee Corzo for the second. We will do a roll call vote. Trustee Warren?
Yes.
Trustee Watkins?
Yes.
Trustee Corzo?
Yes.
Trustee Chen?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Item 3.5 is approval of minutes, December 16th, 2021 and January 13th, 2022.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Chen for the motion and Trustee Corzo for the second. Roll call vote. Trustee Warren?
Yes.
Trustee Watkins?
Yes.
Trustee Corzo?
Yes.
Trustee Chen?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay, we will now move on to item 4.1. Oh, yes. Yes, Trustee Corzo, would you mind doing the translation announcement, please?
Bienvenidos, gracias por estar presentes. Si ocupa traducción, por favor, levante su mano o también puede hacer clic en el icono del mundo que ven en su pantalla y a cambiar la idioma ahí. Gracias.
Thank you. And I'll also announce that there are 44 participants in the meeting. Item 4.1. Public statements related to non-agenda topics. The San Mateo Foster City School Board cannot act upon any matter that has not been included and publicly posted on the agenda, except under limited circumstances as permitted by law. The board may refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and/or action where appropriate. Please limit your statements to 3 minutes. Okay. Peter, would you mind checking if anybody has any public comments?
Absolutely. For those of you that might be joining us for the first time via Zoom, if you have any statements you would like to make for 3 minutes to the Board of Education, Board of Trustees, on non-agendized items, so anything that will not be covered tonight, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now, and I will call upon you one at a time. President Proctor, it looks like we have no hands for public comment.
Okay, thank you. Item 4.2, public statements related to agenda items. Persons will be called on at the appropriate time. So moving on to item 4.3, foundation and committee reports. Does anyone have anything to report? Okay, I'm not seeing anything. So let's move on to item 4.4, Smita CSEA senior updates.
Yeah, we'll be looking for our SMETA representative, but before you, we have Julie MacArthur and Denora Smith.
Good evening. I'm happy to go first and share with the board. SMETA is very excited. Our sunshine statements are on the agenda tonight, and we are looking forward to collaborating with the district as we go forward with renewing our 3-year contract. I also would like to share with the board tonight that SMETA's grant program, which is a partnership with the Ed Foundation, made 3 grants, gave 3 grants this month. One was for Sunny Bray for a spoken word poetry experience for their 5th graders. In Foster City, there was a sculpture watercolor art experience that we were able to grant money to. And at Audubon, there was a design thinking grant that we provided to some teachers. So we're really excited for those teachers to get to do those activities with students. And then the final portion of my remarks tonight, SMETA is looking forward to a partnership between the district, CTA, and our local organization to bring unconscious bias training to all staff. We feel it's an important thing. We look forward to doing this and then to hopefully being able to expand that to helping everybody work with students and address unconscious bias with them. So we're excited for that work. We think it's important, and that's all I have to share tonight. Thank you.
Alicia was not able to make tonight's meeting, so I'm here to introduce myself. I was recently elected as the Vice President of CSEA Unit 411. My name is Denora Smith, and I work at Lead Elementary, and I don't actually have anything else to add, just wanted to introduce myself. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, and I think our SMETA rep might be having technical difficulties, so I think we'll just have to move back next meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Julie and Denora, for those updates, and welcome, Denora. We will now move on to item 4.5, announcements.
Maybe should have said this during foundation and committee reports, but the San Mateo Foster City Education Foundation Readathon has kicked off. So for more information, you can visit the Facebook page or the Ed Fund website, and hopefully everyone has the information they need and is participating. So
Thank you, Trustee Watkins. Anybody else have an announcement to share?
Just 2 from the city of San Mateo. Actually, there is a general plan meeting that's actually currently happening at this very moment. So if you guys don't want to attend our Board of Trustees meeting, the city of San Mateo is having a general plan educational workshop that started at 6:30. They're also having a housing element study session with the City Council and Planning Commission on Monday, February 7th. And that is online as well, if anyone wanted to attend virtually.
I just wanted to announce that Martin Luther King Jr. Day was on the 17th, and the city of San Mateo hosted a team up to cleanup that was basically based out of the King Center in North Central San Mateo. And it was a really good event. And these team up to cleanups happen in the city, I believe once a month. So if you want to get involved and help our community stay beautiful, please feel free to attend one of those. And then also regarding the city of San Mateo, they're actually having their city of San Mateo annual goal setting meeting this Saturday from 9:30 to 12:30. It is their annual meeting where the city council folks each come with a set of priorities, and they it's kind of like the strategic planning for the year. So please feel free to attend that. Information is online on their website. And yeah, that's it for my announcements right now.
Okay, thank you very much. I will just announce, I guess it's like after the fact, but Trustee Chen and Superintendent Ochoa and I had, we met for the board community workshop recently with Bowditch. It was the Bowditch complex, but anybody could come, and it was virtual, and we had a great conversation.
Sorry, I also forgot to mention that in case you weren't aware, many of our schools have reading buddy programs, and the Fiesta Gardens, where my son goes, actually just started implementing their reading buddy program online last Friday. So if you have spare time on Friday mornings and you want to get involved and help our kiddos by listening to them read and then providing feedback to their teacher, please reach out to the school. And I know lots of other schools are doing this as well. So if you want to get involved, there's lots of work to do. And yes, we would appreciate it.
Okay, we will move on to item 4.6, Superintendent Report.
Very, very excited to report tonight. I'm going to share my screen actually, if I can here. That'll be just fine right there. All right, here we go, folks. This is the time of year when we talk to all of our families about this annual readathon. It kicked off on January 21st. This is a partnership that we have with the San Mateo Foster City Education Foundation, our wonderful partners there, who do so much to help us elevate education in our community and rally folks around the idea of supporting our schools. All students in grades TK through 5 are invited to participate, and during this 2-week period, they'll be reading together while raising funds for important programs like music, STEAM, ELA or ELD, and staff and student supports. We use 99 pledges to share our fundraising page and log daily reading minutes. I am showing the public the smfcedfund.org/readathon page. You are seeing the pictures of our wonderful principals scroll by on a loop, and these folks are all committed to helping our students become readers and excited learners. So really, really want to encourage our families to get involved. Spread this around to your friends and families, those grandparents that love their little grandchildren so much. Let's get them involved in this and really promote literacy in our community. And many, many thanks to all of our partners who are helping with this program. The City of Foster City, the City of San Mateo, who both gave us space last week to host some events and bring parents in to talk about this very important project. So excited to see you all participate. And those are my remarks. All right.
Okay, thank you. We are going to move on to item 5, proposed consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered by the board to be routine and will be enacted by the board in one motion in the form listed below. There will be no discussion on these items prior to the time the board votes on the motion, unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items be removed and discussed from the consent agenda. The superintendent and staff recommend approval of all consent items. Movement of any recommended consent item is appropriate at this time.
Okay, if there are any members of the public that would like items removed from the consent item, consent agenda, and like to make public comment on, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now, and please let me know which specific agenda item you'd like to make comment. Okay, President Proctor, we have no hands from the public.
Would anyone on the board like to remove any items?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Chin for the motion and Trustee Watkins for the second. We'll go to roll call. Trustee Warren,
Yes.
Trustee Watkins,
Yes.
Trustee Corzo,
Yes.
Trustee Chin,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Moving on. The next item on the agenda is 6.1 special education update.
Good evening, Board of Trustees and Superintendent Ochoa. Tonight, I'm really pleased that Director Heather Morgan is going to give you our winter special education update. With that, Director Morgan.
Good evening. Thank you, Dennis. I am just getting on board here and I wanted to share my screen. So thank you, Board of Trustees and Superintendent Ochoa for giving me this opportunity to share our updates with you. And let me just pull up my screen and hopefully I do this correctly. Okay. I'm hoping everyone can see this. So we will jump right into our special education update for January 27th. Okay, and can I? All right, technical help. Why can't I scroll down? Page down. Nope. Oh, there we go. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. So our executive summary for tonight, as was shared during the October update, all of our special education updates will review the previous content. We will also do some program updates and implications, fiscal updates and implications, staffing updates and implications. And I've invited Amy Fickenshire, who's the head of our CDAC, to share at the end of my presentation just a little update about what's going on with CDAC. And so I'm glad that she'll be joining us. Okay, so in October, our program updates and implications were around our progress with inclusion, our sequencing for RSP and SDCs, our agency behavioral therapists enrollment. There's an increase in our students qualifying for special education. Under fiscal updates and implications, we discussed NPA and NPS contracts. Remember, that's non-public agency and non-public schools. We also talked about agency hires, settlements, and payouts to families and the legal fees connected to those, and also the transportation costs and the significant costs. And then finally, for staffing updates, we talked about, again, the agencies, excessive contractors, and department duties were undefined at that point. Okay, so moving on, this is now our January update. So in terms of inclusion, we have created a SPED leadership team. I think we may have mentioned that at the last update too. That is, has representatives from all of the different departments within special education. And so there's site principals, there's representatives from school psychs, RSP teachers, SCC teachers, and all of the different related service providers. And so SPED leadership and our inclusion team, which is also comprised of a couple of site principals and our inclusion TOSA, they have shared their experiences and challenges to date with myself so that I can get up to speed with what has been done and what some of the challenges they were facing in trying to get inclusion initiated within our district. So a committee is being assembled to move forward with understanding these financial and structural implications, largely professional development, which will be necessary for both general education and special education teachers, and the implications of doing so in order to get inclusion practices in our school district. A thorough analysis by this team will facilitate possible successful implementation. All right, and an update on further updates on programs are RSP classes and special day classes. So we wanted to just remind you that we do have programs at sites throughout the district. All of our K-8 schools have RSP available. I've made this little table here to share with you the different programs that we have for special day class and preschool. It indicates the level of the class, whether it's mild mod, MM, or mod severe, and then also the number of programs at that school. So you can see, if you just look here, it's kind of just at a glance, it gives you an idea of where we have large numbers of programs, and it might also stand out where we don't have large numbers of programs. So we are examining the location of these programs, and we've defined a priority for students to be able to attend a classroom in the complex where they reside. The district will be opening new SDC classes in 22-23 to begin facilitating this change. Also, we've reorganized the support teams so that each middle school complex has a designated coordinator and a program specialist. I'm really excited to share this information tonight. We are designing a behavior support team for our district. We're in the process of building this team, and these are the additional positions that we're looking to add to our district to support this team. So the first is, it's called the Bcba, and that stands for Board Certified Behavior Analyst. This is a graduate level certification in behavior analysis. And these are professionals who are certified at the Bcba level who can provide high level behavior analytics services to our students. A registered behavior technician, or an RBT, is a paraprofessional certification in behavioral analysis. And we are hoping that this will also provide an opportunity for current paras to obtain the extra training and certification to become RBTs, and that we will be offering some coursework in the summer to help facilitate this. And then finally, we are in the process of adding a third paraprofessional level called a Para 3, which would have higher levels of behavioral knowledge and expertise, and that they would also receive training from our newly designed training team headed up by the Bcbas. Okay, and here, this is just a little snapshot for you. This is not a complete budget, but I wanted to share because we talked about the NPAs back in October and the costs associated. So this is just a random snapshot of 5 individual contracts. And I just wanted to mention that our contracts range anywhere from $14,000 to $102,000 per year per student. So our plan in developing our own behavior team and investing in internal layers of support and training will provide more stability and accountability. So we'll have our own very highly trained tiered levels of support for our students. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, that we have designed this special education leadership team that's comprised of a bunch of different representatives from all of the different groups. One of the priorities that SPED leadership identified this year was equity for dual identified students. Those are students who are both identified as English learners, and they also have an IEP. So we have determined that the best way to really get more information about this and to make some really informed decisions in the best way to address equity for this particular group of students is to design a committee led by a coordinator, one of our special education coordinators. We'll have a team that has been assembled to investigate and make recommendations back to our leadership team, beginning with the California Practitioner's Guide for Educating English Learners with Disabilities. This has it's a document that was put out by the CDE. It's dated 2019. It's a great starting point. It's a really, really important sort of cornerstone of information for this group. And including studying this, not only, but they will also be doing a deep review of district data. They will conduct focus group interviews with staff, and they will develop recommendations for us moving forward, which I will in turn share with you. Okay, and professional development. So back on January 4th, we had the All District Professional Development Day. The morning session was differentiated by provider type. So depending on which group you fall in within special education, you would have had different professional development opportunities. However, in the afternoon, the law firm AALRR presented to the entire SPED staff. We had a wonderful turnout. It was over 120 members from our team, which is pretty much everyone. And they presented on writing legally defensible IEPs. Then moving forward with our forward planning in terms of professional development, we are working on a special education institute headed up by one of our program specialists. The rationale for this is that team members need to have an explicit understanding of special education background information in order to prepare for welcoming students with special needs into our schools. And our goal is that all building stakeholders will leave with the necessary information to effectively support students with special needs. And I like to share our menu of opportunities in this institute. So here you can see, this is a snapshot of our menu of courses that will be available for our newest teachers. That's our first group that we're going to prioritize in preparing newly hired ed specialists for the district expectations in special education. So we have IEP writing, IEP meeting facilitation, legal obligations, case management, data collection, differentiation, and behavior management strategies. I'm really looking forward to being able to implement this, and I think it's going to make a big difference in supporting our teachers and students. Okay, as promised, we will have data and fiscal updates at all of our special education updates. So I'm sharing this because I wanted to give you an idea of what our current NPS spending looks like. So this is present numbers as of right now for this school year. This first column shows the number of students. Each row is a different agency. I've removed the names of the agencies, but I did want you to see the number of students. So the top row, for example, there's one student, and that agency, sorry, not agency. I apologize. These are schools, non-public schools. That school's cost is $41,736. So you can go across, you can see the different numbers of students at different schools, and then the total cost associated with those non-public schools, with the total of being $2,819,647. The average per student is $93,000 for non-public schools. Okay, the next chart here is, these are the agencies. So this is our costs for NPAs, totals to date for the 21-22 school year. Again, names removed, but you can see job positions in the first column. So you can see, for example, the first row, those are occupational therapists, physical therapists, and speech and language pathologists for a particular agency. And the cost associated is on the right. You can see that the total costs for agencies at this point is $12,686,697.27. I feel like this slide in particular highlights that this is a very expensive cost for us. And in particular, building the behavior plan that we're looking at could be a really strong way of addressing our internal, or building an internal program so that we won't need to have these exorbitant costs for agencies. Okay, staffing updates and implications, our current staffing status, and this has been updated as of yesterday. Our paraprofessional classified vacancies are now 11. We have 6 pending hires. So if those pending hires go through, we'll be down to 5 openings, which is a tremendous improvement from where we started in August. Classroom certificated vacancies are 2. We have 1 RSP vacancy and 1 SDC Mod Severe at the 3-5 level that we're looking to fill. Other certificated specialists that we need to fill right now, 1 SLP, 1 OT, and 1 psychologist. And yes, that's correct. Okay, sorry, I was going to talk about the RSP again. So that's where we are as of right now. Obviously, staffing fluctuates greatly. And so these numbers and this information could change literally from day to day. Okay, is Amy here? Did she join us?
I am here.
Oh, good. Okay, so I would like to introduce Amy Fickenshire. She's one of our co-chairs of the CDAC committee, and Amy is here. I invited her to speak a little bit about what's been going on with CDAC because that's a huge part of special education.
Thank you for having me, Heather. And it's nice to see everyone tonight. I wanted to talk just a little bit about what we've been up to since the last time we presented in October. So we most recently on January 18th had a community education presentation about inclusion from the nonprofit Common Ground Society that is based in Sonoma. And it was attended by parents, teachers, administrators, and community members. The presentation and discussion was on creating inclusive communities and classrooms, educating about and celebrating differences, and some suggestions for teaching strategies, and best practices such as UDL and differentiation of instruction. And we're really hopeful for a continued partnership with Common Ground Society as they are teachers who then became parents to children with special needs. And so they can really speak to what it takes to create an inclusive classroom because they did it as teachers. So they do presentations and assemblies for students talking about creating an inclusive community and making sure that everyone belongs. And they also do PDs for teachers as well. On December 7th, we had an open conversation about communication and special education. And prior to this meeting, we sent out a survey to families so they could share their experiences about what's working and what hasn't been working in terms of communication. We had about 35 people attend this meeting, and a big thank you to Heather and Diego for being there on our panel and helping to create this opportunity for two-way communication. It was really a nice opportunity for some specific questions and concerns to be addressed and answered in real time. And I think it's important for families to feel like the special education director and the superintendent are accessible. So we hope to have another open conversation meeting later this year as well. And back on November 9th, we had a session on IEP eligibility areas and IEP nuts and bolts. So the district lead school psychologist and SLP presented about the different eligibility categories and what the IEP assessment process looks like. And Karen Breslow from the SELPA shared resources, which have now been posted to the CDAC website about the IEP process. All of these meetings were also recorded and are on the CDAC meeting archives page. So if anyone's interested in listening to any of these meetings, especially some of these community education presentations, those are available online. And then I also wanted to mention that just this week, the CDAC Vice Chair, Jennifer Mayman, and I met with a group of volunteer CDAC parent site reps. And this group represented 7 different school sites, including an NPS placement, and students ranging from a 3-year-old in preschool all the way to a 13-year-old in middle school. We discussed ideas for outreach and parent-to-parent connections and some issues and concerns that were raised that we will bring to Heather and Diego and the larger CDAC group. But they included things like universal screenings for dyslexia and increased para support in all classrooms. In terms of our upcoming meetings and other community education events, our next meeting is March 1st, and it will be a community education presentation on special education law and parent rights by the organization IEP Collaborative, which is a local organization that focuses on providing parents with legal information so that we can be legally informed and best collaborate with the school district. So they really do want to help parents who are having a hard time avoid litigation by being legally educated about their rights in the IEP process. I've linked both the Common Ground Society and the IEP Collaborative websites to this slide if anybody is interested in finding out more. And then we also have meetings on April 12th and May 17th where we're still TBD in terms of the topics, but hopefully one of those will be another open conversation with Heather and Diego. And then I wanted to mention a few community needs that have sort of come up. based on the surveys and conversations that I've had with some parents, there really seems to be a need for information about the transitions from 5th grade to 6th grade and from 8th grade to 9th grade that are providing specific resources to the unique needs for students receiving special education services. And on top of that, creating a forum for parent-to-parent connections, I think will be really important moving forward for this community. And then I am excited to hear about all of the changes and the department structure and the complexes. And I would just ask to see all of that, all of those changes reflected on the district website in terms of org charts. We are very regularly referring parents to the district website to figure out who they should contact if they have a question. So when those aren't up to date, it's challenging for people to know who the right person to contact is. But I've really enjoyed working with Heather and Diego this year, and I think that we have a lot of exciting things coming from the CDAC. So thank you for letting me share tonight.
Thank you so much, Amy. I would love to just reiterate what a great relationship I think that we've been able to start and continue with. And I'm really enjoying having the conversations that I have with CDAC and through your leadership, Amy. So I really appreciate you not only leading that up, but also joining us tonight to share with the board. So moving on, this actually takes us to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. And I am available for any questions or comments from the board.
Thank you, Heather, for the presentation and for Amy for the CDAC update. Do we have any clarifying questions from the board? Okay,
yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay, Heather, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. There was so much data in there, and I really felt like I got a really good idea of what's going on with the special education department. I do have several questions.
Okay.
However, since the last time we've been presented in October, I know we got a kind of a rough number of how many newly identified special education students that were qualifying. I was just wondering if we have any more updated information from October till now of any other students that have been assessed and now qualify for special education.
Okay, so you're looking for like a hard number on that?
Or just, even a rough number for now.
I mean, I would prefer to pull up the accurate data, which I don't have the perfect number for you right now, but I'm more than happy to get that for you and I'll share with you.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful, that would be great. And then I was just wondering also, I know in the past, child find has been kind of a hard, it's almost like trying to nail Jello to a tree to try to get that information. And I was just wondering how we're doing in terms of identifying and assessing students, or even welcoming students for an assessment. And I'm just wondering, even across, not just going from elementary and middle school, but also, with our preschool as well. I don't know what the visibility right now to that is.
Right. No, actually, thank you for bringing that up. That's something I would really like to actually go a little bit deeper in with all of you. So again, I'm not avoiding it, but I do want to make sure that I give you like accurate picture of what you're looking for. I do know, I mean, obviously child find is huge, and we very often, our we identified kids in lots of different ways. Sometimes they come to us with IEPs, sometimes it's GGRC presents us with information about students that that should be on our radar. But like you said, I like that the image of the Jello to a tree. I haven't heard that before. But Lisa, I do want to make sure that I have accurate info for you on that. So I will collect, as the best I can, because like you say, there are some areas where I can't get like hard data for that, but because it's, it's like, where are they? But I will work on that for you and I'll present back.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you so much, Heather. Another question I have is, given, we've heard a lot, and I think it's kind of something that we all are very much aware of, that there are several very difficult to fill positions within the area of special education. I know you highlighted registered behavior technicians as one of them. I know SLP, OT are other areas as well. Do we have any idea of like what the backlog of services owed is, and the compensatory services that we're going to be giving, and are we working on a plan to deliver those compensatory?
Yeah, I think I understand your question.
Okay.
So yeah, first of all, yeah, I feel like it's twofold. So the first thing I would like to say is, yes, there are some positions that are hard to fill, and we do have strategies in place to be proactive in filling these positions for, you know, the future and moving forward. So one of the mistakes that we've made in the past is identifying these holes and filling them too late. And so we really need to be ahead of the game. And we've already done some really deep dives in terms of where programs need to be, where we're going to be placing teachers, where what those positions are. And we're going to be posting those very early in order to get ahead of the game for the 22-23 school year. Now, in terms of compensatory minutes, that's really based on individual students, because every single kid's IEP is different.
Sure.
It's I and IEP, right? Individualized. So in terms of that, our program specialists and our coordinators do calculate every single, for any student that is not receiving student services that they're supposed to be having. They do calculate that, they keep track of it. And then when we do get our providers in place, then we make individual schedules with kids to make sure that they're getting the services they need. And that can look different depending on student to student. As you can imagine, if you were to say, I'm just going to make up a fake number, but let's say you were owed 10 hours of time, it wouldn't make sense to do like all 10 hours in one day, right? So we also come up not only with the number, but also with a plan for giving those services in a way that supports the students' learning.
Certainly. Got to make time for them to actually do the learning that they're supposed to be doing in real time as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I know in the past, we've seen that most of, or I should say, a high percentage of our students that are qualifying for special education seem to be qualifying under the autism spectrum, as well as behavioral, and kind of that whole spectrum. Are we still seeing that as being a trend, or are you seeing, or is that something that is just easier to?
You know, I would like to pull the data on that.
Okay.
I can just think of my own experience in recent IEPs, but I don't feel like that may not be an accurate
of course
depiction, because I'm obviously not sitting in every single IEP. So if you'd like some information about, you know, qualifying eligibilities, we can look that up.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful. And then also, I apologize for all these questions, but I'm almost done, I promise. I think it's great that we're offering special education professional development, you know, especially around IEP writing and goal writing. How much of this is special education professional development is being offered to the gen ed teachers?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that, because actually that's a huge part of the inclusion initiative, right? That an enormous, obviously, if students are going to be included in the general education class, the teachers need to be educated on how that works and how to do it effectively. So the piece I shared with you tonight was designed for special education teachers. That's not designed for gen ed teachers. However, moving forward and with the direction from that inclusion team that we're working with, then we will explain and sort of learn more about what the rollout looks like in terms of education for the gen ed teachers. So you're very forward thinking in asking that. It's a great question. And I absolutely will have more information, but as I said in my presentation, we do need to do, I want to get the foundation set. So one of the biggest mistakes we could make is to move too fast, turn it into tokenism, and it will fail. And I don't want that to happen, because I think it's far too important. So making sure that the basic foundations are in place, starting with like financial foundations, like, are we prepared to build the teams and are, you know, and provide all of the, you know, professional development, all of that costs money. We want to make sure everything's in the right place before we move forward. And like I said, I just avoid tokenism. I think sometimes it's kind of exciting because it gives you an idea of what something can look like, but it also can make the program more frail and less likely to succeed.
Yeah, we definitely want things that can be sustained.
Yes.
Especially since students, you know, special education students in gen ed, it's not something that's going to go away.
Right.
So I think my next question is more of a comment. So I don't know how quite to phrase it as a question. So I think I'm done now. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah.
I have a question about the the work around equity for dual identified students. I'm just wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about what that team looks like how many folks are on it, what kind of perspectives are at the table in that work. And then, yeah, and I'll ask a different question after.
Okay, so this is a very newly comprised team. It's like I said, it's led by one coordinator. As far as I know, there are 2 principals and I believe 3 special education teachers on it so far. Keep in mind, we just advertised this. So this was like a new thing. We're looking for people who have a strong level of interest because it was prioritized by the SPED leadership team. So right now, that's what I've got in place. We are welcoming all. There's no limit. We do think though, Noelia, part of the reason that we decided to make a subcommittee was that it came out of the work of the special education leadership team, which is a large team. It's like over 20 people. And we felt that doing a meaningful dive was not going to be accomplished in the leadership team, which meets monthly with about 20 people in it. That's just too sprawling of a group to actually do some meaningful research and work. So like we said, we designed a little bit smaller. The plan was to have a little bit smaller group, but as of today, I think it's about 6 people on it.
Thank you for answering that question. And then my second question was just around some of the work. Is the intention of the focus interviews just to I'm wondering what the intention is in terms of interviewing staff. And then I guess I was wondering if there will be maybe in the future, maybe the next phase, an intention to do focus groups with parents of students in this group. Yes,
absolutely. The focus group purpose is exactly what you would think is we need to get the story. We need to understand individual stories. The data speaks, but people speak better. So I really do want to hear from individual experiences. Yes, from teachers, but of course also moving forward with families too, because we're not going to be able to really understand what our past limitations have been and what our challenges have been if we don't really hear from the perspective of the people that it affects most. So yes.
Yeah, this is like a tiny comment, but maybe, sorry, can't help myself. I'm trying to phrase it as a question. Do you think it'd be maybe productive to try to get like a parent or 2 on this team? And if that means like having to provide translation services, good, but like just to be part of the.
I think that's a great idea. Yes. Yeah. No, I love the very, very well executed question. I understand. Yes. I am open to that. I think it would be a great idea. I mean, we have to, I want it to be comprised of people who are really interested in the work. So yeah, I mean, like I said, we're still at the beginning of setting of the parameters and getting the group up and running, but we'll definitely include anyone who has strong interest in participating.
Okay, I'm interested myself, actually. I'm in my full-time job. I was a social worker for 4.5 years working with special needs students, but not special needs students, like the developmentally disabled community, and lots of kiddos, not in our school district, but now I'm a participant choice specialist, helping to run this self-determination program. So learning about lots of other aspects of how our disabled community and our kiddos need support and what's out there from like other resources. So it might just be like a cool perspective to have. And if I can help even with translation or whatever, I'm happy.
We would love that. Yes, well, I'll have the coordinator reach out to you.
Thanks. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other clarifying questions? Okay, I had just a couple I was gonna mention. One thing that just kind of sparked my curiosity was, and I know that you didn't share the names of the non-public schools, but everyone has like a 1 or 2 or 3 students, but there's one with 10 students.
Mhm.
And I was just curious, is that a specific like disability, or is that an area where we can see that we can make improvements so that students could stay in our schools in the future? Or what are your thoughts about that?
That's a great question. There are certainly areas of trends that we see, and those come about for different reasons. Sometimes it's just a perception, and sometimes it's an actual area where we need to be able to provide support for kids that maybe we don't have the capacity for now, but we're looking forward to building it. So I think that's possibly what you're seeing there. I mean, I think it also could, and I'm saying I think, which I don't like, I'd really prefer to look down at the data of the kids who are actually going there. But just overall themes here, I definitely think there are certain schools that just attract different families for different reasons, and that it may pop up that one is more frequently populated for that reason, but yeah, I think in looking forward, and part of the forward planning part of my role is to identify those places where there are things that we could do for kids that maybe we couldn't do in the past, that have created situations where they felt like they weren't getting what they needed from us. So that's where I need to do like the deep dive and say like what programs can we build up more strong? And then of course I'm working with my gen ed peers too, to say like what general education instructional practices can we strengthen, so that we're not having to sort of fill those voids within the realm of special education. So it's a collaborative effort, but I think it's that graph stood out to me too, because it does show that there's quite a few of them, but then one has 10. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
I had two other questions. One was, I guess going forward in the presentations, can we start, maybe it's a year from now once we've made improvements and hired people, but can we start to look at the cost like year over year? So like we'll look next year at how much we're spending on NPAs and NPSs compared to this year versus next year, that kind of a thing. So we can just keep an eye on that.
A year to year analysis.
Yeah, just
Years.
and it may be in a year from now or something, or 2 years, whatever. But just wanted to keep our eye on that. And then my last question was just around Amy's presentation, where she they identified some community needs in terms of transition from elementary to middle and middle to high school, and how do we address those needs?
Yeah, thank you for asking that, because actually, just like right on the heels of me preparing this and putting the slides together, which I did a week ago, we actually have already sent out, the high school had a heavy push right at the end of last week for all of they had an info night, and we invited a bunch of families, flyers went out, and that all happened right after. I think right around now is the time of year when parents start getting nervous, and parents always get nervous like right before we share all the information that's coming. So it did come. And the high schools met with our department last Friday to go over their like updated plans for what transitions would look like. And then internally, because we do our own transitions into kindergarten and also from 5th to 6th, we have I'm actually meeting with a bunch of teachers on Monday to go over updating that process and make sure that we've got the right people on the receiving end of the transitions. It's really important to have, for example, the middle schools need to really be running the 5 to 6 transitions, because they know what they can offer at their schools and they know what the programs look like. So we're putting those things in place and getting that started. I know everybody gets nervous. It's like kindergarten registration, high school registration. It's a nervous time of year, but I do know that the high schools have just recently put out a lot of information for parents. So hopefully that is, they've received that, and we'll keep pushing that out universally. I shared it all with the 4 middle school principals, and then we also did a district-wide push as well.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Last call for questions. Okay, Peter, would you mind checking to see if there is anybody that would like to make a public comment on this item?
Absolutely. If there's any members of the public that would like to make comment on this item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. You'll have 3 minutes to address the board. Currently, we have 2. We have Lysia and then Randy. Lysia, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Ligia. Ligia Andrade Zuniga. I guess I'll make a comment. It's really important, especially parents that are not from this country, to be kind of onboarded onto all of these services and introduced to what it looks like in this country to receive these types of supports, because a lot of people don't know that, right? And it's easy for us, that maybe understand the process, understand the jargon, the language of this type of service, but a lot of people don't. So I'm not sure what that looks like in your district, but I'm just hoping that people are introduced to this. And then also remember, there are parents that might have some feelings around the stigmatization of disability. So just addressing that as well. But thank you for letting me comment.
Thank you, Lysia. Okay, next we have Randy. Randy, go ahead. Oh, hold on one second. My apologies. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening. First, I want to thank Amy for just her many years of service to this community, and yeah, just great job as always. And Heather, awesome job. This is, I think, probably the best special ed presentation that I've seen in 4+ years of attending board meetings. And I thought this was really clear, goals clearly stated, data clearly stated, and yeah, just really good job. This is great. So I do have a question. Now that we can actually see some data about I'm kind of going the direction that Trustee Proctor did, with the NPSs, the NPAs. With now that you can actually see those data spelled out with the NPAs, I'm very curious. So you have all this listed out, $12,600,000, right? But how many people, how many positions does this represent? Number one, and how many students are supported through these positions? And I think what I'm really curious about is what would be the cost to staff these positions, not through NPAs, but internally. Not just the cost, there's the salary and then all the benefits and all of that, but what also would be the cost through the HR efforts, just getting out there, establishing that pipeline, going through all of that. And I'm wondering if you have any, and I know I totally appreciate you wanting data before you put your stake in the ground, right? But I'm very curious, Heather, if you have kind of a sense of what that is, or maybe if next time that you come back, if this is something that can be incorporated into the presentation, if the board members think that this is something that's important. And then I guess finally, the last question that I'd have. So, with these NPS placements, it's it was just under $100,000 a year for each of these placements. And I'm curious if the district has an estimate of how much does it cost, and the regular funding plus the expense just for, I know there's no such thing as an average special needs kid in our district, but what is that cost? Is there a way to estimate that to take care of them in our district? Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Okay, President Proctor, we have no other hands for public comment.
Okay, great. Let's open it up to board comments. Please begin.
I can jump in. Thanks so much, Heather, for the presentation. I really appreciate the just the consistency from presentation to presentation, kind of knowing what to expect and having it kind of organized in the subcategories. So thank you for that. You know, just looking forward to kind of seeing how that progresses, and would just like to second what Trustee Proctor shared about kind of the year over year, and even potentially seeing some of that this year if you feel like there are changes. So like, for example, you shared that, you know, we are seeing the staffing change. You know, there's been a significant change. It would actually be really helpful to kind of see like what that looks like at each of these presentations, just so we can really visualize that, because I'm not necessarily holding those numbers in my head as we're moving from presentation to presentation, nor is the community. So that would be super helpful. You know, I'm really excited about kind of some of the focus areas. I'm appreciative of the focus around the complex areas, both in terms of how we're staffing support and also just how we're ensuring that students have the ability to attend school in their community. And I think that, you know, that is something that we have heard over and over and over again over the years, and to be able to share with parents that that's something that they can expect next year. I mean, it's, you know, it's obviously too late for some families, but the fact that families know that that's something that they can be assured that their child will be able to go to school in their neighborhood, that their child will have consistency in terms of who's supporting them. I think that that's, you know, that's huge. So I just thank you for kind of the efficiency and just like prioritization of that and responsiveness. So I'm really excited about that. And I think, I mean, a lot of the other areas that you shared in terms of kind of the various teams, behavior support team, and the, you know, some of these other areas that have been identified by subcommittee are definitely, I think, you know, they are the right priorities. I do think that one of the things that kind of stands out to me as we think about kind of the is just making sure, and maybe you guys are thinking through this, like there's a lot of things kind of happening, right? And there's a lot that needs to be done, and there's a lot that folks are kind of tackling in each of these areas. And so you know, I just want to make sure like I'm in full support of all of them. And I also want to make sure that the team feels like they have enough resources and support, and that all of these things are things that you all feel like you can do and do well, and the team has capacity to do. So I don't know if that's a question or a comment, and I'm, you know, sure that it's something that you guys are thinking about and talking through. The other thing that made me think a little bit about it is just integration, right? So, you know, if CDAC is focusing on this and the SLT is focusing on this, and like, is there a place where everyone comes together to share what they're doing and to ensure that the work isn't being duplicated, that everyone's aligned and rowing in the same direction, which kind of leads me to another point. I know I've said this before, and I know that it's not here yet, and I think that it will be coming, but just really thinking about kind of like a strategic map for what this looks like over the next couple of years, which I think will come kind of once the strategic plan from the board level is, you know, identified more clearly, which will be soon. But my hope would be that then, you know, we're all kind of, again, I know everyone's rowing in the same direction. I'm just kind of thinking about preserving capacity and making sure there's alignment and that everything's really strategic so that it sticks, and you know, and how to do that. So that was just one of the things I thought about as you were kind of sharing around, like there's a subcommittee around this, and you know, a group focused on this, and Amy's talking about a group focused on this, right? And like, how does that all work together, and how do we ensure that like as people shift and as these, you know, that there's it maintains that it's being maintained. The other thing, oh, I was also just going to say, in terms of all these subcommittees, I would just love to make sure that we're hearing updates about how all of that's going. And so whether that's, and you know, a representative or whether you're reporting back, I'm sure that you will, but just kind of wanted to hone in on that. I think those were the big things. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to getting these types of updates on a really consistent basis, and there to be, you know, again, that consistency in terms of where we're hearing and you know, data driven. So thank you so much.
Okay, I'm happy to go next. So first of all, I just wanted to start by giving one of our public speakers a shout out. She didn't mention this, but Ligia Andrade Zuniga is a board trustee in the San Mateo Union High School District. And she is an amazing advocate for many of our families. And so I also just wanted to kind of elevate that I do think that there's a really big need to make sure that we are supporting families. Not like, I know our CDAC has done a lot of this work, and I'm really proud that there's translation being offered at every meeting now, and that there's like an active focus on engaging and supporting more Spanish speaking families and knowing their rights in that space. But I also think that our I do want to make sure that part of the focus of the work of, oh my gosh, I can't remember the name now. Here it is. The Equity for Dual Identified Students is really that family engagement piece, and making sure that families have support. And I remember that the Sanctuary Task Force in 2020 at some point talked about like, how do we support our families who something as simple as like get kids on Chromebooks, right? Like imagine coming from another country and not even potentially not even having gone to school in that country, and then coming here and sitting in a meeting, even in Spanish, even when it's translated, that's very wordy, very complex, and not even knowing what to ask for or what to ask for more of, when other something I've seen for sure in the special needs community is that a lot of things happen by word of mouth. So a family's like, I was able to push for this and we got it, and it's been really working well for my child. And that news kind of spreads. But how do we internally just like support families with that kind of information? And I think absolutely, like, I know that that's definitely our intention, but we also know that the reality is that there are English learners that are over-identified. And so, that's just part of the reality. And so I definitely think that part of the solution is making sure that we are supporting families with having information and knowing their rights, and knowing that there are resources available to them. And yeah, let's see. I think, yeah, those are my comments for now. But thank you so much for the presentation, and I am excited about all of this work. We've been at it for many years, and we're making progress. So I want to definitely recognize that we're making good progress. Thank you.
Once again, Heather, thank you so much for the presentation. I'm going to echo what Randy said. It's so nice to get a presentation full of meaningful data. And it's nice to have a really good understanding of where we need the staff. It's very easy to say, well, you know what, we're lacking RBTs, for example. But when you see it in perspective of like, well, this is how many RBTs we're having to hire from outside agencies to the tune of about $70,000 per contract, just throwing a number out, it suddenly begins to hit home. So I appreciate that level of data being brought to the board. One of the concerns that I have still, though, is the visibility of students with IEPs who have a least restrictive environment of general education. They tend to be kind of like in this weird no man's land, I think, of, it's like I think a lot of parents don't know quite who's responsible for them. Are they gen ed? Well, pretty much, because that's they go to a gen ed classroom every day. And at the same time, they're pushed in or pulled out, and how many minutes a day, how many minutes per week are they with a resource teacher? What exactly does a resource teacher do? How does that count as special education? I think that's a group that I don't want to say that we're neglecting, because I don't want it to sound like that, but I feel like they need a little bit more love. And I would love to see us come alongside more of our families with students in gen ed that do have the IEP. I know that from what I've been told by parents when they contact me, it's that they do feel somewhat invisible. So I would love to see CDAC reach out more to those families, as well as our special education department. I'm also looking at our preschool, and I think, a lot of times our discussions always start with kindergarten, and we kind of forget that we have preschool. And not only do we have preschool, but we have preschool special education. A lot of these families, they qualify for special education from, the time that their child is born. They go through GGRC, they go through the regional centers from wherever they are. And then at 3, they age out of the regional centers, and then they become school district responsibilities. They go from the ISFP. Malia, help me out. Is it IFSP or ISFP? Anyway, then they come to an IEP.
IPP.
Okay, there we go. When they go from the family plan to the education plan, essentially. And then we're trying to get these kids to, at a preschool level and at an early childhood education level. I would love to see preschool become its own complex. I know right now it's kind of put into each of the complexes. And I'm not 100% clear as to how that different, like which preschools go with which complex. But I just feel like that's an area that, especially if we're looking at our commitment to early childhood education in general, that we need to be addressing special education at that level as well. Because a lot of times, kids that are in an SDC in the preschool ages can suddenly have a least restrictive environment of being able to be in a gen ed setting, come kindergarten. And I think that would be wonderful, especially if we're striving for inclusion. I also think that, and I'm going to bring up, I'm probably going to get eye rolls in the audience from special education parents, but we've all heard, if you've been in the special education community, about the trip to Holland. You leave on this, wonderful vacation, and you think you're going to go to Italy, you're going to go to Venice, and you're going to have this wonderful time, and you get off the airplane and you're in Holland. And that's very different from what you were expecting. And I know that tends to be used a lot with describing what it's like raising a special education child, or a child with special needs. I feel like nobody prepares. You're not prepared for that trip. You're not prepared for the weather of Holland. You were prepared for a trip to Venice. So I feel like, to the point of coming alongside of families and kind of even like creating like a parent mentorship program, I would love to see something like that occur as well. Because navigating special education services, like Trustee Corzo said, a lot of it does tend to be word of mouth. There doesn't seem to be some, magic handbook that, people are handing on the DL. It tends to be, at pickups, at drop-offs, at the bus, stop when you're waiting to, for your child with other special education parents. So I would love, if we're talking about, and we're considering creating an environment where we are educating not just the child, but providing the support and the services to the families. I would love to see some sort of parent mentorship. And I know I've mentioned that in the past, and I'll probably keep mentioning it until I see it. But I would really enjoy seeing just more parent mentorship happening within special education in the district. And I also know that I brought this up at the last special education presentation, but we do have a parent handbook on our special education page of our district website. And I think that's great, but it's also dated 2006. I would love to see, I mean, I'm sure there's good bones to it, but I would love to see something that, one, is a little bit more up to date. I'd also love to see something that maybe is a little less cookie cutter and more pertinent to our district. So hopefully that could be something, you know, in amongst everything else. Heather, I know you've got quite a list that you're working from right now, but maybe that's something that CDAC and special education as a department can work on together. And I would love to see that happen.
Great. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Heather, for your presentation. It was very good, very informative. I am very excited about where we're headed, especially where we have been. So this brings me, say optimistic, but I will say optimistic. I've seemed to have used that a lot lately. So the one comment that I am going to make, actually, what Trustee Proctor had mentioned earlier in her question was about what Amy had mentioned in her community needs. I think that, you know, special education parents, you know, have a really hard time. And one of the most anxious periods of time is when that transition happens. I know, Heather, you explained what is currently happening with the high school district. I would love to see some sort of more formal process between 5th and 6th grade for us. I know that in the past, from what I understand, the files from one elementary school was just shared with middle school, but it seems like we could do more than that. So I'd love to see something in more of a formal process in a future update. So, but I'm not going to repeat what everybody else said. I definitely think you guys did a great job. And I'm very excited to see where we're going. So thank you for your presentation and for all your work.
I think everything has been said that I would say. So I just wanted to thank Heather for this presentation. I really like the direction of where we are going, and I'm really looking forward to continued updates and hearing feedback from families and just continuing on this path. So thank you, and thank you, Amy, again for your leadership of the CDAC group and for bringing forward to us the concerns and what's going on there as well. So just really thank you both. Okay, let me find my agenda. Okay, we are moving on to item 7.1, San Mateo Elementary Teachers Association initial proposal for the 2022 to 2025 successor negotiations with San Mateo Foster City School District.
Good evening, Board President Proctor, Board of Trustees, and Superintendent Ochoa. We are looking forward to collaborating with Smita as we enter into successor negotiations to negotiate a 3-year agreement. But prior to meeting and negotiating with Smita, the government code requires that the district provide the public with an opportunity to comment on the initial proposals. And so I respectfully request that the Board of Trustees conduct a public hearing to receive comments regarding Smita's initial proposal for the 2022 through 2025 successor negotiations.
Thank you. Do we have any clarifying questions on this item? Are there any public comments, but just knowing that in a second we're going to open a public hearing. So if there are any public comments on 7.1, let us know, raise your hand. Okay, any board comments? Okay. We are moving on to item 7.2, public hearing on the San Mateo Elementary Teachers Association initial proposal for the 2022 to 2025 successor negotiations with San Mateo Foster City School District. We're opening the public hearing at 7:55 p.m. Peter, can you check with the audience?
If there's any members of the public that would like to participate in this public hearing and like to make comment, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, President Proctor, we have no hands to participate in this public hearing.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing at 7:56 p.m. We are moving on to item 7.3, San Mateo Foster City School District initial proposal for the 2022 to 2025 successor negotiations with the San Mateo Elementary Teachers Association.
Board President Proctor, the government code also requires that all initial proposals be presented at a public meeting. And so I respectfully request that the board receive Smita's initial proposal for successor negotiations for 2022 to 2025. And then we can go ahead and hold the public hearing for the district's initial proposal.
Okay. Do we have any clarifying questions from the board on this item? Are there any public comments? Again, recognizing that we're going to have a public hearing in like 5 seconds. So please raise your hand. Okay, any board comments? Okay. We are going to move on to item 7.4, public hearing on San Mateo Foster City School District initial proposal for the 2022 to 2025 successor negotiations with San Mateo Elementary Teachers Association. I am opening the public hearing at 7:57 p.m. Peter, can you check with our audience?
Yes, if there's any members of the public that would like to participate in this public hearing, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, President Proctor, we have no hands for public comment.
Okay, thank you. Sure. I'm going to close the public hearing at 7:58 p.m. Okay, moving on to item number 8, board member statements and requests for future agenda items.
I'm sorry, Board President Proctor.
Yeah. Did I mess up?
May I present 7.4? So similar to the initial, that's okay. I should have jumped in more quickly. Similar to the Smita initial proposal, the San Mateo Foster City School District must also present its initial proposal at a public meeting. And attached is the district's initial proposal for successor negotiations. And I respectfully request that the Board of Trustees approve the district's initial proposal for the 2022 through 2025 successor negotiations with Smita.
Okay. Are there any clarifying questions on this? Okay. Are there any public comments?
Any members of the public would like to make comment on item 7.4, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. President Proctor, we have no hands for public comment.
Okay, thank you. Are there any board comments? Okay, so we need to vote on this. Is that what I'm hearing? No? Yes? Okay. Did I mess up the hearing? Do I need to do that again, or are we okay to move on? Okay. Thank you.
Now we just need to have approval from the board.
Oh, okay.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Chin, for the motion, and Trustee Watkins for the second. Roll call vote, Trustee Warren.
Yes.
Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
Trustee Corzo.
Yes.
Trustee Chin.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to number 8, board member statements and requests for future agenda items.
Okay, I'll start. I want to express my gratitude to Superintendent Ochoa and the district office, the administrators, and everyone in our community. There was an article about COVID and our return to school this year after the winter break, and regarding the Omicron surge. And there was an article in the Daily Journal that talked about comparing districts to districts. And what was missed in the article was we talked in hard numbers and the districts talked in percentages. And so I just wanted to express my gratitude and clear the record that while other districts were seeing 20 and 23% absentees in students and or staff, we were only seeing 1%. And as the largest district in the county, 1% is a huge undertaking. And I really just want to thank everybody for all their help. I know that it's been extremely hard. I do know that the Omicron variant is sort of hopefully plateaued, if not decreasing by now. But I do want to express my gratitude for everyone. I know that it's been really hard. I know that people have been pulling double duties. I know that last meeting, Superintendent Ochoa went and taught some classes. I know some of our district office staff went and cleaned classrooms. And I know that it's been really hard. And I really just want to express my gratitude. In that same token, I also want to mention that we did just receive an email from County Superintendent Nancy McGee, who did mention that we are at 49% or a little more than 49% of our students the children 5 to 11 have received both their doses, and 61, I want to get this right, I'm sorry, 61%. 61.3% of our student population or our children from 5 to 11 have received at least one dose. So I highly encourage everyone to not only get vaccinated. Superintendent Ochoa, I think, missed this opportunity to plug our vaccinations at College Park. Was it yesterday and today and tomorrow? Or it might be the next 3 days from now. But please get vaccinated. Please join our pool testing. Because I think it's working out fantastically. So again, thank you to everybody who has helped out in this.
I'll just add to that really quickly. I want to give our superintendent a shout out for just I remember like when we first started sharing the data and on that dashboard, and how we had like a news crew at Foster City Elementary at like 6 in the morning, and it was like a crisis, but really it was just that oh, this is something different. This is a different kind of data. And having information is really important, and that information was used to to really encourage folks to participate in our pool testing. And we have COVID testing almost essentially every weekday in most of January, and I believe also going into February. Is that right? And that takes a lot of coordination and a lot of work from our school site leaders, from our staff, from our teachers. And we've had multiple vaccination efforts, like Trustee Chin just mentioned, and we're doing our part in our community, right, to keep our community safe. And I don't even think that like a year ago I could have imagined that we would offer this much testing and that we'd have such successful vaccination efforts at our schools. But I think I'm really proud of this work that our superintendent has led, and to just make it super clear again, like we're a model in our county for this, and always working to improve that, right? So still working on making sure everybody knows, because I remember probably like 2 weeks ago, I was like, oh my gosh, like there's like this crisis, like there's not enough testing in the county, and then I was like, wait, our school district is doing testing, and I like I found the information and then I went and I was able to get a test in like 5 minutes. And I got the results like a day later, which was really impressive. And so I just, lots of gratitude for that. On another note, I have been kind of talking or thinking about this for a while. And actually this was something that I really had hoped to bring this forward to our board when I was the president in 2020. But COVID happened and kind of threw a wrench in all my plans. But I'd really love to have a discussion as a board about what it would take in our community to have non-citizens vote for our school board. I think that there are other school districts and communities that are that do this, and I think New York is making a shift also to having that happen even at like a municipal level, which is whole next level there. But I really think that it's tied to family engagement, that it's tied to parent engagement and empowering families to know that they have a voice in there in how decisions are made at the highest level in their school district for their children. And our community, I think, is really unique because we have non-citizens from all over, right? Like, look at how many folks in Foster City are, citizens in other countries and live here permanently. And I think that makes us really unique. And I would love for us to have this on our agenda at some point, and you just start thinking about what that would take. I've actually done some research, but I'll save that for when the time comes. Thank you. Oh, sorry, one more thing. Also, I really want us to spend some time also just like focused on addressing like literacy in our school district. I know that's already in the works, and I'm sure will be incorporated somewhere soon, but I just wanted to highlight it again.
Anyone else? Okay, I just wanted to, I guess we're thanking Superintendent Ochoa. That's the theme right now. So I wanted to thank you. Last week, we all received an email about a social media post with racist words and hurtful statements. And I wanted to thank Superintendent Ochoa and everyone in the district that responded and will continue to proactively respond in this situation. I think it's just important for us to realize and recognize that we are not immune to racism in our school district, and I appreciate the fact that there's going to be opportunities for listening sessions and training, and we all want our schools to be safe, welcoming places for children to go to school. And it's disappointing to see what happened, but it's happening, and so I appreciate the fact that the response was quick, and we all got to kind of reflect because we all received the email in our district. It wasn't just one school. So thank you for the work that you're doing now. Okay. Let's move on to item 9, future meeting dates. Okay, looks like we have a regular board meeting on February 10th and 24th, and we have our special board meeting on February 1st that we're all looking forward to discuss a strategic plan and board goal setting. And then on February 22nd, we are scheduled to visit George Hall and lead. Okay. We are at number 10, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Thank you, Trustee Chin for the motion and Trustee Corzo for the second. Roll call vote, Trustee Warren.
Yes.
Trustee Watkins,
Yes.
trustee Corzo,
Yes.
trustee Chen,
Yes.
and I also vote yes. Good night, everyone.